All right, welcome back everybody. My name's Andrew and you're watching the Kelley's Country Life. So if you've been following the homemade ice maker build series here, I've decided I want to do some further testing. So this is the brand new model, version 2.0. It's more refined, zero modifications to the freezer, and it's also automated. Those are all upgrades compared to the original DIY ice maker that I did. However, once we've started pulling some results off of this, we're averaging about 11 pounds a day off of 2 refrigerator ice makers in here. I still feel like we're leaving some on the table. There's got to be a little bit more production we can get out of these. And the reason I feel that is because the previous ice maker, right before I decided to unplug it and go into this build, I made a last minute design change on it, just tested air velocity in a different type of way, and we got some pretty significant numbers. One day was a rare 13 pounds. I've never been able to duplicate it again, but it was averaging 11 plus pounds, kind of like this one's doing, and this has more fans, more things going on. So I really think we can go back to a more simple design, save some money without a doubt, simplify this in here, get more volume, more room back for ice storage, and potentially get more production all in the same process. Let me show you what I'm going to try. All right, so the plan is, I'm thinking we do not need these down tubes that go down beneath the ice. I'm thinking a couple of fans mounted up here on the lid or somewhere right in front, blowing air velocity over the ice maker. I'm really starting to think over is going to be the key. The only concern I have here is it's going to hit the back wall and it's going to create some sort of swirling effect. So I really don't know what we're going to get into with this new design. Whereas my last one had the ice makers over here and I was forcing the air between them, it would hit and go down. We're not going to be able to accomplish that here in this particular setup. So just to test proof of concept, I'm going to run a piece of aluminum bar across the top, mount my fans right there beneath it, blowing at these, and let's see if we get an increase. We'll do that before we tear out everything and modify this. We can also do that off of one door switch, and we no longer need this smart controller for automation because we're not blowing on the bottom heating element. So the ultimate goal here is get a little more production out for less money. That's the perfect DIY project. I've also been running tests for the last several days off camera, testing did the volume increase that we did inside the freezer, did it create a hot spot? Because I've not been able to get this freezer beneath about 11 degrees with both fans running. And my theory was we've created more volume up top, we have less cooling coils in this extra volume that we created, the freezer's probably struggling. Whereas typically I think a freezer has stratification, a hot spot up top, cold air sinks to the bottom, that's perfectly normal. And with those fans running there, we've been stirring it up. So the testing that I've ran kind of proves that theory. As soon as I unplugged these fans and been letting it run without it, the bottom went down, actually it went down to like -15. It got extremely cold. I had to bump the freezer back up so it would cut off. But right now I've got it running to where the bottom is typically seeing 0 to -1, and that's on a low setting on the freezer itself, by the way. And the top fluctuates sometimes up to 15 degrees if the shop gets really hot. So it's proving the theory that the cold air is sinking, you've got a warm layer up top. I think that's perfectly normal in a freezer type situation, but adding the fans is stirring that up. And we still are probably gonna see that once we have these fans in the new location as well. All right, so I'm going to remove these shrouds off the suction side, and these fans are labeled with an arrow which direction the flow goes, so you don't even have to run them. But I am going to leave the shroud on the output side because testing with the last ice maker showed that increased velocity and increased production. All right, so now the fans are just briefly mounted on this aluminum plate that we can take right back out and put this back to normal. I can run off a 1 fan switch now. So when the lid's closed, they're both blowing directly over the top. That could be a lot of velocity and could blow some water out. We're going to see. I'm also a little bit concerned about condensation buildup with the evaporation effect of putting warm water in there. High velocity blowing across the top. I could wind up with a lot of condensation and water and ice buildup down the back wall. But time will tell. So our temperatures are still awesome. -6 in the bottom. I didn't let too much hot air in. I'm gonna let this run for 1 hour, reset my kilowatt meter, and we'll get new energy usage. Should be a lot less now because we're only having to run 1 power supply now. It'll power up 2 fans, 1 door switch, and we're taking the smart controller out of the equation and just gonna let the fans run. So now I'll start monitoring temperature, seeing how it's mixing up in there, kilowatt hour usage, production. I think we're gonna make just as much, maybe even more ice, and use less energy to do it, and less build cost. All right, so we're back for our first 24-hour test with the fans in the new location. Again, we've taken the smart controller out of the equation. We took 1 power supply out. We only need 1 door switch now to operate both fans, and we're not using the pipe that's in the bottom. So fingers crossed this works. It'll save a ton of money and open up some room in there. Now, just as soon as I kicked the fans on yesterday, temperature started flying up. Keep in mind, this was at like, I seen it as low as -5 degrees. So stirring up this hot volume of air up top where it normally separates out is making it all the way to the bottom. Now with that said, 12 to 15 degrees will still keep ice cold, and you're still making ice in the ice maker because that velocity from those fans are actually cooling it down enough that the ice makers are triggering. They're supposed to be 10 degrees or lower. But what this tells me is, looking at both of these temperatures, I don't think the compressor will ever shut off until you unplug the fans. That's something to keep in mind. I think my last unit was doing the same thing as well. Now, I've talked with people in the industry that actually work at manufacturing facilities and build these. I've had people tell me these are designed for a compressor to run 24/7 if it needs to, and I've had people tell me, no, that's not the case and you're gonna wear it out. Only time will tell. My last one ran for months and months and months like this. Had no issues with it at all. I'll put my hand and stuff down around the compressor. I don't feel any crazy heat, but we're gonna put fans on the compressor here before long as well to help cool it down. All right, so to the eye, this doesn't look as impressive as I was hoping for. So let's see. All right, so 10 pounds, 6 ounces. So keep in mind, we were averaging 11 pounds with the previous setup. So we're kind of right there in that same ballpark. We wound up getting almost 12 pounds one day and around 10 pounds one day. So this is right there with it. We're gonna run another 24-hour test just to double check everything. All right, so there's a couple ways to look at this. It looks like we're making pretty much the same amount of ice. We still need to run one 24-hour test, averaging them together like I did with the other setup. So that's good and bad. I was hoping for more production, but we're not done testing. But the other way to look at it is, we've made the same amount of ice for about $100 less and not have all the other controls going on. Now my gut tells me, because we've increased that volume, that dead space in here, we may not even get the production that we got with the last one. We're trying to cool more volume down with the same amount of coals. We did not increase the cooling capacity of this unit. So that's something that we're gonna have to fight here. We may have reached the maximum until I get this in an air-conditioned room where I expect production to go up. But we still need to play with fan locations. We'll do that in this episode to get it right up to the ice makers. Right now I'm quite a ways off, and see what the difference may be there. Also, I'm going to check out the efficiency of the unit by cooling off the compressor down there, putting force fans on that as well. So I'll see y'all back in 24 more hours, and let's find out what the average of these tests are. All right, so to the eye, it's looking about the same to me. But the scale will tell. Yeah, okay. Oh, so close to 11 pounds. 10 pounds, 13 ounces. All right, so a new theory that I want to try after talking with one of y'all. Y'all said that you actually removed these diffuser cones and got more ice production in a setup like this. Now keep in mind, the only reason I'm even using these is one, to fit inside that PVC, which we're no longer using, to pull from the bottom. And two, because my last ice maker had two ice makers set up over here like this, completely different setup than I have now. And when I put that diffuser cone on, I picked up like 2 pounds a day, but it was necking down and forcing the air in between the ice makers. I no longer have that setup with two of them back here. This diffuser cone may actually be hurting me because the ice maker tray is out wide. It's necking air down to that much and only kind of hitting the center. So there could be something to this. I want to take these off to where the fan is spreading air out more and put these kind of up near the ice tray to where it feels like it is completely covering the entire ice tray. You don't never know until you try it. I would have never thought I would have picked up 2 pounds a day by putting this on with the last ice maker, so taking it off in this scenario may help us. That's why we run these tests. So it looks like not pulling cold air from the bottom is making slightly less production. Like, I got to crunch the numbers, but I think it's like 6 ounces a day or something. Not a big difference at all. I don't know if that's worth picking up for the extra cost of that smart controller, all the PVC, the elbows, everything. I don't personally think it's worth it at all. That's moving a ton of air over those ice makers. So we'll start this test back over. I'll let this cool down, then start another 24-hour test, and we'll see if this makes a difference. I got the fans a little closer. No shrouds on them at all. If this works, or at least gets us the same amount of ice production, great, because those shrouds are like 12 to 14 bucks or 15 bucks a piece, something like that. That means we just shaved another $30 off of this build. And if we can make it even cheaper and produce just about max ice, why not? Let's do it. All right, so this is our first 24-hour test with the fans with no shrouds on there. We're getting a wider air pattern going across all of the ice maker. Will it make a difference? I don't know. Excuse the rain. I know it's hard to hear me in this metal building. All right, let's see. £9 pounds, 11 ounces, our worst yet in this entire new series of testing. All right, I don't think I'm gonna run this test again because that's a pretty bad number. So obviously taking the shroud off, which lowers the velocity of what's coming out of those fans, does make a difference, a bad difference. So I wanna get back up in that 10+ pound range. Looks like I need to put those shrouds back on the fans. All right, so it's been 24 more hours, and this is just kind of a proof of concept test here to wrap this thing up. So I put the fans back to the original position where I was averaging 11 pounds a day, and I want to see if I get anywhere near that again. All right, so 11 pounds, 7 ounces, kind of back where we were to begin with. By the way, in this little bit of testing we've done, we have made a bunch of ice. There is a lot more in there than you realize. It's up to here. That's with us taking a bunch of ice out last weekend. All right, so where does that leave us at the end of the day? We did not make more ice like I was hoping to, but to be perfectly honest with you, I'm starting to feel like we are reaching the maximum cooling capacity of this freezer. Sure, there's probably still a little bit more we can squeeze out, but what a lot of y'all don't see is I get emails and private messages from you, the viewers, all the time where y'all have made some of these machines. And there's been a few people that sent me in their test results with 3 ice makers and similar freezers. And guess what? Most of them are maybe getting a half a pound to 1 pound higher. Some of them are not averaging any higher than I'm getting now. And that tells me that the freezer is probably at its maximum cooling capacity, because an additional ice maker in theory should get us another 5+ pounds a day. And I'm seeing most people talking about a half a pound to a pound for the ones that show me results for 3 ice makers. Obviously they're running different results, different atmosphere. I understand all that, but it shouldn't make that big of a difference, or that little, I guess I should say. So I think we may have milked this for all that we can. So we do have some good news after running this test. I did this mainly to see if we could reduce costs but still get good production. Yeah, we can. Don't forget the original setup to where I had the smart controller, the PVC pipes, the extra power supply, the extra switch, all that, trying to pull cold air off the bottom. Cost $535 to make for the setup that I have. Now here's the thing, that produced the most ice, but not by much. On average, half a pound to a pound more than all the other tests that I ran. So while that is something, is it worth that huge increase in price, plus all that extra PVC and everything down there takes up your room? I don't think it's worth it personally. I'd rather have a little bit less ice production, more volume, and less overall cost to build this. So the worst it produced without a doubt was 9 pounds and what was that, about 14 ounces. That was no cones, 2 fans running, stripped down to bare basics. Once we put the cones back on, we're back up in the 10+ to 11 pound range. As you can see, we're averaging just a little less than 11 pounds. That's great. We're out here in a hot shop outside. Eventually this is going in an air-conditioned room. It can't fit in there right now, and I expect results to go up a little better, although the AC in that room is gonna have to work harder because there's a hot freezer in there, excuse me. The shell is gonna put off heat. So energy savings is probably gonna be a wash, but we may produce slightly more ice. Hard to say. My ultimate goal for this build was to produce 10 pounds a day minimum. Looks like that's not a problem, we can do that. So where do we stand at the end of this testing? Well, good news is I think you can get costs down significantly building one of these. We still get a much cleaner build. That's what I really wanted to accomplish with this PVC collar that I made. No modifications to the freezer. I was able to take 1 power supply out of the equation for the fans, 1 refrigerator door switch out, 2 shrouds because, well, we're not using PVC anymore. The cost of all the PVC and that smart controller, that all equals a little over $100 right there alone. So depending on how you shop and deals that you're finding, this can easily be built still with a nice collar, no modifications, for a little over $400. If you price shop, catch some stuff on sale, or get a used freezer, you can absolutely build this thing in the 300s, no issues at all. The fans are critical. It appears the shrouds do make enough of a difference. I think they're worth the cost right there, and something I will always keep on here. So where are we gonna move forward from here? I want to go ahead and get y'all the test results out, but what I think I'm going to do is, I don't like this bar that's in the way. I think I want to figure out a mount to mount the fans up here. I'm going to mount some more fans on the compressor that I have down there, cool that area off. Maybe efficiency increases, maybe it doesn't. I don't really expect production to increase, but I want to find a way to clean all this up. Get wires run down to a switch, have them to where when I open this, the fans are out of my way. I don't have to move this bar. I can easily scoop. Because what a lot of people aren't realizing is, I see people all the time tell me, add a 3rd or 4th ice maker, add all this stuff in there. Well, at a certain point, that kills the convenience, what this is ultimately about. I need to be able to get this big scoop in there, scoop ice weekly. I use ice a lot, that's why I have this, and I can't have ice makers and stuff all in the way. It makes it really inconvenient. So 2 fans mounted up top that come out of my way, they kill with a switch. We've now stripped this down, saved a considerable amount of savings if you were to build another one from here on out, and we're still making well over 10 pounds a day. I think that's a win-win-win. So stay tuned. I will clean this up. I will mount the fans. We are going to cool the compressor off. I've been curious to try that, try a few other things, but we just about got this finalized, I think, to where I need it to be. Thank y'all so much for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. So one other thing I keep forgetting to show y'all is I've started making block ice. I've taken a lot of y'all's suggestions. I saved these containers. Everything fits perfectly. So once I get these fans out of the way, I got plenty of room to scoop, and I can make, I think it's 6 blocks of ice over here at once. Let me show you these. So excuse the noise, sorry, we got an engine running in the background. But I saved these nail containers, cleaned them out. This is not drinking ice, this is just fitting the coolers. But I thought cubes this size would fit in a cooler really well in between drinks or in a fish box. So let's see if I can get this out of here. So check that out. I think this is going to make the perfect ice to sit down in a cooler to make my cubed ice last even longer and fit in between drinks. So I think it's going to work out really well. Other thing about these containers, they're angled on all directions so I can actually get the ice out like you've seen. But that's another big reason I don't want to add any more ice makers or anything else in here. And I'll now turn this into dual purpose. I can make block ice and I can get my cubes. All right, so excuse the rain noise. It just started, so I don't really think that's going to have an impact on this test. But it's been 24 hours with no shrouds on the fans, and I've kind of got them set up to where I feel like it's really blowing over the top of the ice makers. But just a little tip for y'all. It is very hard to weigh your ice when you forget to put your catch pins in there and all your ice is everywhere mixed in with old ice. 24 hours wasted. Yeah, I did that.